These are Youngstown cabinets and I restored them in 2017. Youngstown by Mullins. This was on the sink base of the cabinet that was in my house. Basically, it's a rattle can restoration. These three cabinets that you see on the left here were in my house I bought in 1989. They were the original cabinets to the house. The house was built in June of 1951. And this cabinet over here I got on Craigslist about the same time I restored the others. It was a little bit worse shape, and so I ended up painting the inside of the doors red. And then I painted the inside of the cabinet as well. Here's the cabinet before restoration. It was pretty rusty. The door on the left is sandblasted, the one on the right is how I received it. And then the painted the inside with Dover white, and all installed. Looks pretty good. These cabinets, I didn't paint the insides of the doors. They were in pretty good shape. But one thing I wanted to show you was these little posts right here. They screw into a fitting, should I say, an insert that's in this door. And they're made out of brass and probably nickel plated. So these posts on this cabinet, this is the large one that I got off Craigslist. They look like they screw in, but they actually don't. You can see that when I painted this, I just taped them off. I didn't take them out, and I kind of wished I would have done that with these cabinets, which I just got off Craigslist here about a year ago when I had them in storage. I'll show you the picture of the 5 cabinets I got, and the top cabinet you see in the picture is actually the last cabinet from my house in Seattle. These have the same type of pins, and I really wished I removed them. I'll show you what I had to do. I didn't paint the inside of these doors. They're rolled with paint. They're fairly good condition. The catches themselves are all the same in all the cabinets that I have. These cabinets actually have these handles on them, and sorry about that, they are made in Japan Belwood, so they've got to be from the 50s, I would imagine. It's a nice retro orange color. Would have looked good on there, but they weren't the original, and so I really wanted it to look and match like my other cabinets. Talk a little bit about the hinges and how I took those out, how they were removed, and of course the catches, and these, which I should never have pulled out, and where I got the new rubber stoppers from. These are the pins that were in my cabinets installed in the house in sometime in summer of 1951. They're brass, chrome plated, and they screw in. And they have a little like insert right here that sticks out from the surface of the cabinet, so you can see that. Might be hard to see in the picture here. So the latches, I was unsuccessful trying to find anything that's made today that would work. Got lucky though, I had a cabinet that I bought on Craigslist that was a different style, and it came with this type of latch that has these little ears on it. And here's the type of latch, or should I say a catch, that was in the Youngstown cabinets. On the Youngstown cabinets, I found a patent number right there in the upper right corner from August 15th, 1939. And I thought maybe if I searched with the patent number, or maybe the impositive lock name, I could find somewhere. I looked on Craigslist, I looked on eBay, I looked on Google, and I couldn't find. I'll be showing you how to remove these. I damaged a couple of these badly. If you just pry it out, you'll end up bending that ear a little bit too much, and then it breaks off, and then it won't stay in. This one actually stays in differently. You'll notice that little tab has some space, and between the tab and this right here. Here's that other style of cabinet. It's not a Youngstown cabinet, but it has that catch in it. And you can see that there's no, the base that goes inside, you can't see it at all because it's actually hooked on the inside of the frame. And those were a lot easier to get out than the Youngstown ones. The pins, I found something online, and I'll include a picture. I didn't actually go buy any. Somebody said on a thread that you can get them from Sailrite, but Sailrite doesn't carry 1024 thread. This is the inside of the door of that cabinet I got off Craigslist in 2017, and it had the other style of pin. So what I did was I found a 1024 brass bolt, and I sanded or filed the end of it into a knob, and then I took a 1024 nut and I screwed the nut all the way on and sanded it down, and that now fits and it works pretty well. On the left is the Sailrite pin, which I bought, and this is the part number. You do not want to go buy these from Sailrite. I'm sure they're very good for the lift the dot type of application, but this is too small and it just falls into the hole. Here it is installed. You can see it's not very tall, but it works. Holds it in just fine. There is one more corner cabinet that I got from Tracy down in Oregon, but I'm put that in the tiny shed. So we just removed these doors here, and the way you take the doors off, there's two straight screws on the top of the door and on the bottom of the door. So we'll take those out. They're tiny little screws. Of course, they're full of paint. And then the door just pulls off. And then these two screws come off. The two screws there. They're pretty tight. And the way the hinge is here is that we don't want to, the hinge pin is like a rivet. It's just mushroomed over. So we're going to flip this up and then put a punch right there and punch those out. They're stuck pretty bad. We'll ultrasonic clean these screws. We'll spray them down with super clean, and then also the hinges and maybe even the latches to get some of the paint and crap off of them. And just spray them, put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, spray them down with some super clean, and then I always add some warm water. So these hinges are all finished. They've been wire wheeled, and first they were ultrasonic cleaned, and then these over here are after the ultrasonic clean but still need to be wire wheeled. So this is just a quick blast with super clean, and then rubbed it with a scrub brush and wiped off half of it, and it looks a lot better. I think this is going to be it. And they look pretty good. I mean, you can see the shine in those down there. We were sanding this with just the orbital sander, and I think I'm going to go ahead and tape off the inside and sandblast the insides of the doors. I mean, outsides of the doors, sorry. There's a lot of chipping, and the paint on the outside is two coats. One is a roller, probably from a long time ago, and then the new one is brushed on. And the roller doesn't look bad. It's on the inside of the door only, but the brush on looks terrible. So obviously I have to go all the way down to the original paint. And I'm going to tape off any of these holes right here because I don't want a bunch of sand going into the door. There's already some sort of a sheet inside there, like an asbestos sheet or something, and I don't really want a bunch of sand inside there coming out all the time. So we've got this taped up so that we can put it in the sandblast cabinet and sand it, and I've got the edges taped up in the inside because I'm going to try to not have to paint the inside of the cabinet door. And I put a little piece of tape over that hole there, try to keep a lot of the sand out. After sandblasting, the blue tape gets a little sticky and gooey on the edge, and I think that's going to screw up the paint. So I went ahead and retaped this door. But before I started taping this door, I want to take a quick look at this. This is where the pin goes in the hole there, and that's what came out of it. I thought I was going to be able to use this pin from Sailrite, and somebody said this is what works in here, but these are too big. They just fall into the hole. So here's a couple of doors. This one's been orbital sanded with 60 grit down to almost all the way through the manufacturer's paint, and then sandblasted to take off the manufacturer's paint, and that leaves less scratches. This one is the same, but it's been hit with 120 grit on the orbital sander. And of course there's a few dents, and so I'm going to stop now and fix those dents. This door's been sandblasted, then 120, and I found some dents, or at least one dent in this door, so I stopped and then filled it with body filler, and then came back and then sanded it with 80 grit to get that skin off the body filler and down pretty ways, and then that area with 120, and then the whole door with 220. I'll start by painting the top coat on the inside of the door. You can see I've got a little bit of white showing through in that crack. I'll make sure that I get that covered with the banner red. I got a little bit of white showing through there from the original door. And so I'll do the edges and that lip right there, and then I'll flip it over and we'll start on the other side. After I did the 600 wet sand, I did a quick gray Scotch-Brite, and now it's time to clean it with spray away glass cleaner. I'll do that on the front and the back, and then I won't touch it anymore, and it's time for top coat. Okay, we're going to take out this latch, and so you lift up one side and push in the pin. So we'll lift up this side. Okay, and then you take a punch. Let's see if I can get down here. See that? Okay, punch that flat. Okay, punch that flat, and you push that side back down. Okay, and then this side should come out. That's it. And then after you're done, you need to bend the tab. That tab is bent out, and that one just needs to be bent out a little bit, and then you can reinstall it. This contact paper is going to come off, and I'm going to try a heat gun and see if that works. So the heat gun works out to help release the contact paper. I don't think it takes the adhesive off, but it sure helps with pulling this off. I'm going to try it without the heat gun and see if it takes the adhesive off when I'm pulling it. So we thought we'd clean the tops of the cabinets, and then of course there's a lot that are rusty, and then this one is rusty and bashed in. It's probably the worst one It's bashed in. And the next worst one, that's on the front, unfortunately, but we'll get that straightened out. This cabinet looks pretty straight. Just clean that one. This one looks fairly straight, but it's really rusty. So I have to decide whether we're gonna sandblast the top of that or just sand. And one good thing at the top of the cabinets, you don't really see them, so they don't have to be super nice. All right, we straightened out this top edge here. Kind of sight down that. Well, the biggest cabinet, I decided I was going to go ahead and sandblast the inside. There was a lot of rust, and I got quite a bit of it out, not all of it. And now I'm going to orbital sand it with 80 grit, maybe 120. Before I did all that, I cleaned it inside and out with super clean. It was really nasty, really opaque. I think there was a lot of decades of cigarette smoke on it. So sand it all down, prime it, and then we'll look into doing the Dover white. I'm just about finished sanding the big cabinet, but I checked the squareness of it, measured from corner to corner, and it was a little bit out, so I found that these bar clamps work pretty good to give them a quick tug and get them back into square. And then of course I'll check it again right before I start the top coat and straighten it again if I have to. So looking at the bottom of the cabinet, you can see that it's gapped pretty badly, and I think I'm just gonna put some 3 or 4 pop rivets in there. They originally had it welded, but there was no welds in that area. Well, the rivets will keep it closed. Nothing will fall through now. The insides of these cabinets won't get painted, so the only masking I do is at each shelf, and then I put a piece of craft paper around the end, and then wherever there's a hole that goes all the way through the cabinet, I tape those off. Here's one on the side that I had to tape off. And then what I do is I put some cardboard over the shelves. I just tuck it in, and it looks like this. It's got little cutouts here and here on each side, and then I tape the center after I put each side in. And it masks it pretty well, but in the corners on the ends, there's a little bit of a gap, and that's the reason why there's craft paper there. This side of the cabinet won't be seen, so I sand it, and then any bare areas I prime, and then the primer I wet sand, and then Scotch-Brite before I put a top coat on. On the inside, I do the exact same thing. Here's what it looks like with the Krylon Dover white done, and then I'm painting the outside of the cabinet here. I'm turning it in my makeshift paint booth, and what it looks like when the box is all finished. So replacing the bumpers, the ones on the left with the ones on the right, I got them at the local hardware store, and the bin said they were automotive, but didn't say which automotive brand. They fit pretty well in the hole right there. They're the same height, almost the same diameter, but one of the problems that I'm having is these pins, they need to go back into this hole right here, and they just were kept in with a piece of wire, and when I went to go straighten the wire out, it snapped off, so I need to anneal them. All right, let that cool. That should anneal it, and see if I can straighten it and see if I get lucky. I tried to install one of these off camera, but it wasn't going in. These legs weren't engaging, so I could just pull it straight out. But I measured the depth of the door, and it's like 0.517, and the pin is 0.43, so there's plenty of room between the pin and the inside of the outside skin of the door. And I ground off the ends of the wires a little bit, so there's a little bit of room now between the flange and the end of the wires, and we'll try installing those. Still not engaging. Well, that didn't work, so now I'm going to splay the legs open a little bit more on this one, and it's 0.3. Oh, I think I'm going to heat treat these first before I install them. So I'm going to heat it and then quench it. When I twist the legs up, each leg individually, it touches the bottom of that hex. So I'm hoping they'll spring open when it goes in. I finally gave up, but I found that their wire pieces were the same diameter as a standard paperclip. So I straightened out a paperclip, poked it through the hole there at the end of the pin, and then wrapped it around. I left a little gap thinking that maybe it would be kind of springy once the paperclip was threaded into the hole. Here's one that's completely finished with a paperclip in the background there. Let's give this a try now. Got to get the wire to start in the hole. So it's started now. So, well, you can see that looks pretty good. Okay, it's all the way in. Oh, not quite actually. There we go, I heard it click in. Boy, that's really tight. That's gonna work. All right, I got all the hardware on. They look pretty good. Not fantastic, but good enough for the shop. Next job is to put the hinges and the other catch piece on the boxes. Well, it's almost done. I just need to put 2 more doors on. It's just looking so good, I thought I'd show you how they came out. Pretty nice. I mean, there's some problems, but for shop cabinets, they're great. And they match those. So if you have any questions or you have any suggestions for other people, leave a comment. I usually get back to people right away. Thank you.